Let's be honest, our generation doesn't really read classic literature anymore. But what if I told you that the modern equivalent of a literary classic is secretly disguised as a brutally difficult video game? Today, I'll prove how Project Moon is single-handedly making gamers literate again by forcing us to read, and why you need to experience this for yourself. And later, I'll show you why the mastermind behind this modern literature is this CEO right here.
Yeah, this is big brain time.
To get you to read, these games use a difficulty curve that rivals a Souls game. But if you've ever played a Souls game, you know it's a purely mechanical grind of memorizing attack patterns and dodging perfectly. Project Moon takes that exact same dopamine loop and completely flips it. There are no iframes here. No perfectly timed parries to save you from a bad decision, you can't out-reflex these games, and there's zero mechanical bullshit to blame when you lose. If you're like me playing gacha games, you'd probably spam the auto battle button as in most gachas. But try that in any of the boss fights in these Project Moon games, and you will be severely punished. Your brain becomes your only viable weapon. Forget about how fast or accurate your reaction times are. The boss is solely testing if you actually read its 4-paragraph passive ability. The game actively trains you to digest complex text by rewarding you for doing the math and building the perfect counter strategy. And let me tell you, when your 500 IQ play finally goes off and you completely dismantle a boss that's been walling you for days, it hits the exact same as beating Milena in Elden Ring. More than mere survival, this victory proves you completely outsmarted the game.
Wow, that is delicious. Finally, some good fucking food.
But that brutal combat is just the gateway. The real reason you engage with all of this text is because Limbus Company is secretly a masterclass in revamping classic literature. It takes dense, intimidating, and century-old novels that people ignore today and translates their archaic writing styles into something completely modern. It strips away the pretentious barrier of entry of these old classics and turns these legendary stories into easy-to-digest, incredibly fun, and occasionally unhinged and real experiences. Every single one of these 12 sinners goes far beyond a simple anime trope. Each character stands as director Kim Jae-hoon's brilliant modernization of a classic book. This experience transcends typical gacha grinding. You're actively playing through a reimagined literary masterpiece instead of wasting your time with some no-name NPC's quest.
Although America is the greatest nation in the world, we still face many modern problems. And modern problems require modern solutions.
But what makes Project Moon games truly special is watching how director Kim Jae-hoon's brain actually evolves. If you've played all 3 games, you can physically see the studio learning from its own ambitions to tell their stories better. Library of Ruina is a good game, but it is notorious for its information overload. You're constantly matching, calculating, and praying to the RNG gods over a staggering amount of dice rolls and passives. Then comes Limbus Company. It takes that massive, overwhelming brain drain of Ruina and perfectly streamlines it. They swapped the complex dice for coin flips. It keeps the exact depth, the exact same dopamine rush of outsmarting your enemy, but removes the absolute headache of managing 50 different dice rolls at once. It proves that Project Moon takes what it learned from Library of Ruina and refined it into pure gold.
I have several questions.
I remember fighting Ricardo in Canto 5 of Limbus Company and getting wiped 5 times until I actually read his passives. The moment I swapped my team and beat him on the very next attempt, that was the icing on my cake. But let's be entirely honest for a second. Even with the coin flips replacing the dice, from the outside looking in, Limbus Company's intuitiveness is still a complete mess. If you've never played a Project Moon game before, opening a stage in Limbus looks like you just booted up a NASA control panel. There are sin affinities, sanity meters, clash powers, and a UI that does not hold your hand. If you open this game and let the UI scare you away, you're missing out on one of the greatest reimagined literary pieces in gaming. Just like in Souls games, pushing past that initial confusion and forcing yourself to sit down and just read how the mechanics interact is what makes the payoff so incredibly rewarding. Once that UI and combat loop suddenly clicks in your brain, you feel like a genius.
It's not about money. It's about sending a message.
Here's the craziest part. Limbus Company is a gacha game that actively respects your time. While other mobile games drain your wallet, Limbus hands you an incredibly generous system. To get the newest identity, skipping the gacha system entirely and not counting the generous event rewards, you can get the newest character with only a week and a half of playing if you have the battle pass, which you only need to buy every half a year. Mind you, when you get the newest character, there is no artifact farming, and you basically get the C6 right away. You don't need multiple copies. Multiple copies are useless in this game. In order to clear the most premier content in the game, you can do it with your starting character solo. There isn't a need to swipe your credit card to win. The game refuses to lock power behind the paywall. The actual depth actually lies entirely in the team building. You're combining character passives, sin affinities, and status effects. The game basically says, here are the tools for free, now prove you know how to read and use them. And honestly, the reason why this game feels uniquely fair and passionate is entirely because of the man running the show. This is Kim Jae-hoon. He's the CEO of Project Moon. He is the epitome of ignoring the standard polished corporate PR playbook. He literally hops on stream, an official Project Moon stream, might I add, with a scuffed VTuber model, ranting about his own game and playing through the very content he built and openly talking about his vision. That level of raw, unfiltered authenticity and genuine passion bleeds directly into every pixel of those games. Because of that vision, Project Moon has evolved into this massive multicultural powerhouse of art. You have an incredibly passionate Korean dev team writing the core story. You have the iconic indie group Mili delivering the absolute masterpieces for the soundtracks. When the OST kicks in right after the introduction of a boss, you know that shit's about to go down. And then you have top-tier Chinese artists and animators bring the community together and cutscenes to life. It's a massive global collaboration, all united by this one deeply compelling, incredibly dark literary universe.
This is where the fun begins.
Let the pause between us.
So, where should you actually start? It really just comes down to what you want. If you are a big fan of simulations, start from the very beginning. Start from Lobotomy Corporation. It is a SCP management sim. If you are a hardcore fan of deep deck building mechanics like Slay the Spire and you want absolutely nothing to do with the gacha side of gaming, go play Library of Ruina. But if you don't mind engaging with a surprisingly generous gacha system, or you just want to jump in and experience the modern era's take on classic literature, you can start with Limbus Company. At the end of the day, both of these titles are brilliant dark literary adventures. They will absolutely punish you if you refuse to pay attention. But I promise you, that massive rush of adrenaline when you finally beat Ricardo in Limbus, or when you finally take down Xiao in Library, that's the exact moment you'll realize every single word was worth reading. If you're already a Project Moon fan, let me know down in the comments which boss was your favorite wall to overcome. Go play a Project Moon game. You won't regret it. Hey, while you're still here, click here to see a video of mine that you might like to watch. Else, here's a music playlist that I really enjoy. I'll see you later. Thanks for watching.